Seas greetings, CSGOers. I'm Extremes, and that is Prophecy, and we're here to talk a little bit about the results of late in the ESL African CSGO Championship by Kwese. How's it going, Prof?
It's going well. Currently, some interesting games going on at the ESL finals, but should
Ooh.
be amazing. Should be amazing games tonight.
Yeah, we got to get back to that rapidly. Let's make quick here. So, something to talk about, I guess, is the current rankings where we're at in terms of the overall championship right now, and bringing it up on screen there. I'm a bit of a noob when it comes to OBS, I must admit, dear viewers. So hopefully it does work. Got Energy Esports sitting at the top along with Damage Control 3-0-0. So I mean, by match wins, it actually means winning both maps because they're best of twos.
Yeah, I mean, DC has been somewhat on a tear of late, and that was the start of the run. So I mean, off to a good start there.
Very much so. I think Energy also looking pretty good with the new addition Black Poison, changing the way they play a little bit. They've got some new setups which are quite interesting, and obviously he's a very individually strong player as well. So I guess the outlier we've got to talk about there is Bravado Gaming losing the one map to XD.
Yeah, I mean, I've probably said it a little bit too much maybe on the broadcast, but I do think that might actually end up biting them in the backside at the end of the season, because now they have to basically 2-0 Energy and DC in order to top the log or even come second. So it's I think they made their lives a lot harder than they wanted to, and they still haven't looked fantastic. That train game against MK, not really the best showing, especially because MK which map was it that Vec took them to overtime on? Was it that map?
Yeah, I can probably bring it up quickly. Let's have a look.
Should have been something like that. Vexed Phoenix, Mixed Company.
Vexed Phoenix, Mixed Company.
Pages load forever, obviously.
Of course they do. So Vexed Phoenix, Mixed Company was... there we go, Cobble and Train.
Yeah, Cobble and Train, but was it the second map that they...
It was the second map where it went into the crazy overtime. So, I mean, VXP actually took MK to crazy overtime on Train, and then MK then take Bravado to crazy overtime on Train.
Yep.
That's a little
ridiculous.
Crazy. That's a little crazy. I mean, we could bring up that result. I mean, that was the very last game of Friday night, the most recent game. So, I mean, we see Bravado versus we got Cash and Train. Just see if it actually shows the game integration. Yeah, no, it doesn't want to load, but it actually went. It didn't quite go to overtime. Sorry, versus MK did it. It was very close.
One of the maps did. One of the maps did.
Bravado MK.
Pretty certain. Bravado MK they didn't. Bravado they got 16, 14, yeah? But I think MK was 14. Was it 14-10 up, 13-10 up? I know that they were in the lead for quite a while, and then eventually ended up losing it very, very close to the end there. BVD finally decided to put a string of rounds together.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were just looking at that match. We're not doing this chronologically, by the way. We're just talking here. So, I mean, that was Friday's game. The first map, Cash was MK and Bravado, was just an absolute rout for Bravado. They sort of ran right over them. The door fell on them, and they ran over the top of it.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm still wondering why teams in South Africa currently wanted to play BVD on Cash.
Yeah, it's a mystery to me as well. I wouldn't do it.
It's like everyone's like, oh, let's play Cash against BVD. This seems like a great idea, gents. It's not like BVD's shown, terrible proficiency on the map. I mean, they have in 16-5 just about everybody in the country. But let's try it. Let's try and win a map like Cash against BVD. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like madness. That the whole silly saying about how repeatedly doing the same thing is the definition of madness. It's like, I'm not saying teams are mad, but they have to be a little crazy to play VVD on Cash right now.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, if you can get them off those maps, they haven't shown the same level of, sheer ridiculousness on many of the other maps. We've seen them. They obviously lost Overpass. Now, I think their Overpass is maybe it looks a lot better than it might actually be, because they tend to play energy on it, and energy played, well, the old energy. They obviously haven't played Black Poison, but the old energy kind of was like a weaker version of BVD, where they would run at each other, and BVD just kind of won every single duel. So I think the overpass does look a little bit imbalanced as a result of that. And the train, I mean, they haven't played a lot of train, and it wasn't looking great against MK.
Yeah, I was actually having a chat to a player who scrummed them on train earlier, which was quite interesting, and he was saying his thoughts on Fady on B were that he's just literally in one of three places always. So if they just throw a couple mollies, then he's got no choice but to die, and they found it super
Yeah.
easy. And of course, then the map turns around, BVD starts taking the offensive, and then they wreck you. But if he could say that to me, I mean, we were watching the broadcast. Fady was really static on B, and JT just seemed to have no clue on Ivy at all.
Yeah, Ivy is a very, very difficult position. I think. I mean, we've obviously been discussing a little bit as well that, like, sometimes you can just get absolutely dumpstered in Ivy purely based on timings. And it's a very, very tricky position, because you have to use your your utilities, particularly your smokes and your mollies, very, very judiciously, because if you throw them too early, they rush you late round. If you throw them too late, they're already basically past the utility before you've actually got it down. So it's a very, very tough position. I don't know if JT is really suited for it at the moment. I mean, even VP's players are struggling on that spot. We've seen them rotate numerous guys through there. So I don't know. Maybe a change of position for JT, just to get him a little bit more active.
Or get him into
And
the game.
Fady, yeah, and Fady, I think. I mean, from what I saw from Fady, it was just that he was too happy, I think, to take fights. If you saw how Custom was playing, Custom basically just bought time. He didn't want to take a fight, but BVD could never instantaneously kill him. So what happened is that they would get into the site, and then they know Custom's there, so they can't get too aggressive. They can't push up, and then they would basically just be pinned in, because they know Custom's in the nearby area, probably behind the train, but you can't be certain. And it's just that momentary. What can I say? They were just they were a bit worried about.
It induces.
Yeah, the hesitation was what ended up killing them so often with Custom, and Fady just didn't project that same level of fear onto the MK players. They knew that, okay, Fady's going to take fights with us, so if we can get the smokes done, we can either kill him or flash him. He's not going to hang around. He's going to try and take a fight with us. If we win that fight, we then in a massively advantageous position.
Yeah, I mean, I must also give a qualifier there. I mean, I said JT had no clue. It's not. Of course, he knows what he's doing. He knows far better than we do what he's doing. But it's just, it's a figure of speech. I mean, you look at the guy and go, well, he seemed to be uncomfortable in that spot, and it just wasn't working for him. It seems to me more like a place where maybe like a Detrony would be better suited with an AWP, as opposed to putting JT there. But it means changing the whole structure of the team. So I guess we'll have to see. Train was one of the strong maps last year, but this is a different lineup. So let's hope that they're able to bring it together. If you're a BVD fan, if you hate them, of course, well, then they can suck eggs, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, look, the thing is they've upgraded in skill, but I think downgraded in experience. And Ivy is, I think, very much about experience, based on like I said. I mean, you can just get completely CS:GO timing on those spots by doing nothing other than, I hear a sound. Let me turn left, shot in the side of the head. Because that half a second that you look away is when they decide to push. So
it's so tough. It's such a tough spot. So, I mean, it's no bad aspersions cast on the young man. He's a good player, but it's where it basically requires the other two people in A site to have your back to a degree that you have that trust that you're not going to get shot from the like 5 other angles you can get shot from when you're there. So it's just it's a very rock and a hard place sort of position. I mean, talking about sucking eggs though, a lot of people would want Black Poison to do that. So because I don't think people like him in the scene at the moment, but he's definitely made a difference to the energy lineup.
Yeah, he definitely has. Energy looking like, I wouldn't say a hell of a lot better, but a lot more structured. And I think it's going to favor the players more, because now it's not just, okay, we need X, Y, and Z to go off today and we'll win this game. It's more about, okay, we know we're going to get X out of Black Poison. We know that Canny is going to be set up in positions more often to actually do some work, and the rest of the team is going to revolve around those two. It remains to be seen. Obviously, Black Poison has, I mean, I'd say a fairly public history of being problematic with how he can come down on teammates. But if the players can deal with that, then great. You've got a fantastic player who's going to be, he's going to put up the numbers. He's going to lead the team well from what we've seen thus far. So I think Energy is looking a lot stronger. And BVD, I think, will be loath to have, I wouldn't say lost Black Poison, but see him in that Energy lineup because he knows a hell of a lot of the BVD tricks.
Yeah, it's actually pretty exciting. I must say they're definitely looking very sharp very quickly. Although from what I know is that he's actually been practicing with them for quite some time, so they have had a little bit more time than the public may have been aware of his involvement with the team. But now he is officially confirmed, so he decided to stick with them, and I think it bodes well. I think that there is the possibility that there's a second team now that could challenge Bravado consistently. That's the hope. That's what we hope. I mean, of course, if it doesn't go that way, then there's every possibility it may just be that they're the second place team yet again. But I have some belief that Black Poison is going to make the team a little bit mentally tougher against BVD and also shore them up from a tactical point of view as well.
Yeah, no, that is, I agree on that. I think also it's going to give BVD a different type of opponent to play because, against Ian was like, if we win our deals, we win the game. Against DC seems to have like the most crazy, I don't know what you call it, mental block against them almost, it seems at times. It's like, and you can even speak to the players and they'll tell you, it's like, they'll get into a duel and JT or Fady or any of the BVD guys will just do some ridiculous stuff and they'll just sit there like, I don't even know what to do anymore. Like I'm just done because like what I can't see the kid and he's killing me. So I think once DC figures out how to get past that mental block, they will then be another dangerous team for BVD to worry about, and particularly because of the style of DC as well. I think it's a lot more tactical or a lot more structured than some of the other teams are playing, whereas Ian was just sort of run at them all day and never win the duels. So adding Black Poison, I mean, I don't think it's going to be a super tactical team, but it certainly is going to just give them a base to work from as opposed to how are we feeling today, lads? And if it's good, then maybe we win. If it's bad, well, we're probably not winning today.
And we're probably telling each other how much we hate each other in TeamSpeak.
Yeah.
I think that dynamic of it may have changed a little bit. I mean, Black Poison also has a reputation in that regard too, but not for raging. So let's hope that there is some harmony in the team. But they've looked amazing on Cash, I must say. But of course, are you going to play VVD on Cash? Probably shouldn't. But let's see. Burning Red seems to think they'll want to, but I think you and I are of the opposite opinion.
I just think it's dangerous. Like I can certainly see some of the players on EN being like, we can beat them on Cash, boys. We can do that. And it's just like, no, please don't. Like I think it would be a great game because it might actually be both teams' best map. But the problem would be is that from what we've seen of BBD on Cash, they seem to have a much better idea of how to play the map than EN guys have, and it's going to require so much work from EN to set themselves up into those positions to win. That I just right now I think it's probably better if they leave it to BVD and then start working on some of the other maps. Keep Cash against the lesser teams, but until you're really, really comfortable at map and really know what you're doing, I think let BVD have that map for the moment.
So talking about that exact encounter, I should quickly go back to the results sheet here, which also has the upcoming fixtures. That's actually in the last part of the season. So it's on Friday the 30th of June, so right at the very end of this month. And that's coming up, Bravado versus Energy, 7 o'clock on that particular Friday. So that's going to be a good one. And then that's also followed by XTC Flipside, which may actually be determining something lower down the order. But if we look a little bit further up, I mean, we've had Energy triumph over Mixed Company, Bravado, XD sharing the maps, and then Vex Phoenix losing to Flipside, Damage Control taking out XTC pretty easily in the end. We had DC putting down XD again pretty easily. Like DC so far have had a fairly easy road of it.
I mean, DC's beaten who they had to beat. Teams that got put in front of them are guys that expect them to beat. They've looked pretty impressive in winning most of the maps, except for I think it was that first map against Ecstasy. I think it was that Infinity game where they were having a couple of struggles early on until they figured out that XTC's game plan was push mid for a bit to get nothing, go B, and then as soon as that happened, it just looked like Ensign and I think it was Ensign and Gambit on the day, and then just wrecked them.
Yeah, they again. I think they really are a solid third place possibility. It's just can they break the mental block against BVD? And I think against Ian, the problem they had is they struggle to deal with the all-out run at me aggression kind of thing. It's very hard to deal with that when you play as passively as they usually have. So, I mean, they obviously won the one map against the old Energy on Inferno, and then got actually wrecked on it later in the same competition. So it shows that they can beat Ian, but I don't see them being more than the third place team unless they really make some drastic leaps forward. But there's nothing to suggest that would be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think DC operates at a level of comfort at this point. They do. I mean, obviously for the medal state thing, we knew that they scrimmed and they looked a lot better there. But I still think for DC, I think it's just mental. They have the players to at least have a go at BVD, but they seem to, like some silly shot will come from one of the BVD players, and then the whole team is just like, oh, guys, we can't do this. Look what these guys are doing. Yeah, it's just,
kind of
it's just
this again.
It's like, yeah, it's this again. It's like those kind of things. It's just something like that for DC, and I think the day that they figure out, or no, I wouldn't say figure out, the day that they just like accept that and don't let it get to them, I think they become really, really dangerous for BVD.
So what also makes them more dangerous now is the fact that Haaland was all of a sudden playing well again, which is interesting because every time you call anybody out on a broadcast, we've heard of the kiss of death, but yours is the kiss of life because you call out a player on a broadcast and then suddenly he starts wrecking faces.
Oh, I guess
it's the prophecy curse, the counter curse. So if we
it's just I guess to prove that I absolutely know nothing. So
you know nothing, Jon Snow.
Of course.
Well, there was a Jon Snow who knew a lot and did a lot to turn around people's lack of believing in germs. But that was England in the 1800s, so you can go read about it. He actually did know something. But
I'll take your word for it.
That's all the Uncle Axe with the hat, like giving you a history lesson there, Anyway, cleanliness. But moving back onto the actual results and upcoming, we have a look here. I mean, Bravado took out XTC pretty easily. We had Energy knocking down Flipside pretty easily as well.
I don't know. That Flipside team is a bit of a mess at the moment, eh?
Yeah, well, we know that the lineup it is different in other competitions already, so it is going to change further. But, the issue is, are they just a placeholder right now, or are they actually trying to achieve something?
I mean, given the players on that team, can you really see them being happy with being a placeholder, though?
No, I think they'd want to compete. It's just, do they have the preparation to compete? Probably not. So how does one sort of reconcile the two things? Because they're kind of mutually exclusive, aren't they? In the sense that you do want to do well, but you can't do enough to do well. So therefore, you're not going to.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I enjoyed the look of the old the old Flipside lineup that we saw at the beginning of this year, but obviously the players weren't a fan of that system, so they've now changed it. I don't know. It just seems like when a team figures out what they're doing, I think we'll have a better idea of what they can achieve. But right now, it just seems as though they're chopping and changing players every week. So I mean, it's difficult to even say whether that team really has any hope right now. They look decent on some maps, and then they kind of just fall apart at one point against. I think it was DC. Yeah, it's against DC, and they just kind of like fall apart completely. And like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And Mirage, I thought that there'd be a much better showing on Mirage, particularly given how Cobble went. And DC just summarily executed them. It wasn't even really a game on Mirage.
Yeah, it was kind of disappointing. Well, I guess let's see what they do later in the season. There's, of course, also XTC, who so far have flattered to deceive. Or actually, no, they've just really been
bad.
Pretty bad, yeah, and it's unfortunate because they were one of my great hopes going into the season for being one of the good teams, along with Flipside. Flipside came good with the previous lineup, but so far XTC haven't really done a lot. And
Yeah.
I got to say, I mean, the calling on T side seems to be pretty flat and one dimensional, and that used to be one of their strengths.
Yeah, it almost seems as though Zin's been spending more time practicing his own aim and skills and all the rest as opposed to working on tactics because as a leader he hasn't looked great. As a player he's looked pretty good.
He has, yeah,
I
he
mean
actually has.
he's been hitting some really crazy shots in the last few weeks, but yeah, I don't know. It's that's also a team that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because I also expected them to be a little bit higher on the log. Um, they have lost both their games. Which game did they win against?
I think that
Were
was
they the first ones? Weren't they the first ones to play Vexed?
no, actually.
No, that was Flipside.
Oh, where have they won? Have they
Yeah,
won? Oh
they
yeah,
did win against Vex.
They played
Yeah.
Vex, but it was actually this week. Sorry, actually, it all blurs together for me. So, I mean, XTC of and apologies for that, but it's a lot of late nights. So, XTC, of course, I mean, they should be doing a little better than they are. Let's hope that they can have Viking and P&D firing at the same time. Because it's usually P&D who's firing, but Viking is the other guy who needs to really show for the team. And of late, it hasn't happened at the same time. Now, when P&D is actually away on holiday, Viking has actually looked like the star in his absence again. So I don't know if that's maybe got something to do with the setup of the team, that having them both there doesn't allow them both to shine. I don't know. They need to figure that out. As for Vexed, well, I mean, they're the guys we've spoken about quite a bit because they've taken much more fancy teams to overtime 3 times now. Basically, second map every time goes to overtime. It's getting a little crazy. That was versus Flipside in week 1, versus Mixed Company in week 2, and then obviously versus XTC this week as well. So
It was double overtime this week, wasn't it?
yeah, it was double overtime. So I mean, they've got a couple of good-looking players. They've got Jumperlot, who's hitting some crazy shots. I mean, I must say he really looks impressive. The other guy, Unknown, unfortunately this week seemed to be lagging the whole time, so it was very hard to see really what his potential actually is because he just really couldn't do it. So I mean, they had a couple of other guys show up. Sheer looked really solid on that overpass on B sites. I mean, I don't think he's a particularly exceptional player, but he's a very solid player, and he did a great job. I mean, I think he got 38 kills in total, including the overtime. Just playing a delaying sort of game on the B bomb site, let them come in, pick up a couple kills, die, and it really worked very well. So also just shows you how scary Jumperlot must be because they kept going B. They just left him alone on A. They don't want to go near him.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jumperlot has been the guy that's doing doing a hell of a lot of work these days for Vex. He's the one that's really putting up the numbers and seems like the outright star of the team, and his partner in crime, Unknown, I think is backing him up pretty well. Yeah, I mean, look, they haven't won, so valiant defeats are still defeats. Doesn't matter what kind of pride you walk out there with. It's they need to win. I think they desperately need to win, and the problem is they've actually played some of the weaker teams.
So yeah, they are going to take some serious pain against the BVD and Energy and a DC, in my opinion. But
yeah.
I was telling you, I think I played I think it was a Balisov pickup with Sheer and Frost from VXP, and they were actually saying to me, well, hey, thanks for saying nice stuff about us, but we haven't actually won anything. And to me, that's actually a good thing because it's like they could go, look how close we've gotten. Let's get all confidence in our abilities. But rather they're saying, okay, well, we haven't really achieved anything, so sort of reserve judgments. And I think that's a much better mental attitude to the game.
Yeah, that definitely is. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the problem is you've played most of the easy teams. I think they have XD. Okay, they got XD next week. That'll be next week Friday. And then they have a vast string of pain coming their way.
Oh, yeah.
The week after that, they play Bravado Gaming. The week after that, they play Energy Esports. And their final game for the event for the league is Damage Control. So,
jeez, they really. I mean, if they get double figures in those maps, I'll be proud of them. It's a bit of a shame. I mean, they're showing more in this tournament than I thought they would. I really thought they might end up being the whipping boys, but they've been okay. Looking at some of the past results as well, just to quickly go through them. I mean, the Energy versus XD wasn't really much of a game either. I mean, XD didn't put up much resistance there. DC F3 again, just DC running over F3 and Bravado Mixed Company. Well, we just mentioned kind of how Train actually worked out there, and I guess that sort of leads us to Mixed Company, the only team we haven't spoken about. And so far, I mean, against Vex, they really should have done better than they did, in my opinion. That was in the second week. They really shouldn't have gotten that close, but it did, and they showed some good character to come back into it. The first week versus Energy was a real sort of tough encounter for them. They looked competitive on the first map, which was Cash, but second map it just did not go their way at all. And I mean, I don't blame them for that. Again, I mean, it was the first sort of black poison game there for Energy, but yeah, just second map Cobble was just an absolute rout for Energy. So I mean, Mixed Company starts in the competition really hasn't been as smooth as they would have liked.
Yeah, Mixed Company is a bit of a weird one. I mean, I was saying it on the broadcast is that none of the players when the team was made, none of the players really had been out and out stars. They'd obviously had very good reps as good players, but in the last say 3-4, maybe as much as 6 months, none of them had been setting the world alight as such. So coming into Mixed Company, there was a lot of like, is this actually a good team? Because there was a lot of controversy around them, obviously. And the thing with Mixed Company is I think they look good on their maps, but as soon as they get taken off their maps, you then see the map pool get exposed. And against BVD, looked potent on Train, put on Cash, and they got absolutely manhandled. So we haven't seen enough of them to know exactly what their map pool is. And if I remember correctly, they also have changed their name. They are now the Big Five or something like that.
Yeah, which is a pretty lame name, if I may say so. But I guess you got the Africa thing going. So, I mean, at least with MK, you could like bring out MK Ultra, CIA mind control experiments, kind of as the name. That's pretty cool. But I mean, Big Five, I get it though. It's probably better for marketing purposes. The plus for them, and to give them some credit here, is that they've played Bravado, they've played Energy. So the two of the hardest games of the season are already out of the way early on while they're still trying to find their feet. So if they can find their feet towards the second half of the season, they can actually set themselves up pretty well to get into that top four, which, I mean, they've only got DC to play, and I actually think they could take a map off DC if they find them on the right map. So there is the possibility for Mixed Company. It's just they have to beat Flipside and XTC, basically.
I mean, what maps have they played thus far that we know of? They've played Cobble, they've played Cash.
Cash, yeah. Quite a bit, actually.
And
I think
they've played
Cash every time.
Train. And they've played Train, right?
Let's quickly have a look at their games. I'll just pull this up. Where we go.
Because they played Cash and Cobble versus Energy. They played Cash and Train versus DC. What did they play against Mixed Company? Would be the question there.
You mean against Vexed?
Yeah.
I think it was Cash and
Cobble and Train.
Oh, Cobble and Train. Okay, there we go. So
you see, the problem is they're not going to get any part of Cobble against DC. Sorry, not Cobble, Train. They're not going to get any part of Cobble against DC because DC doesn't play that map. Since Energy gave them a spanking, they don't want nothing to do with that map at all.
But now the problem for them with Train is they were taken to overtime by VXP. They nearly took Bravado to overtime. This is Mixed Company. But Bravado clearly have deficiencies there. But if VXP is taking you to overtime on the map, you also don't have it sorted either.
Yeah.
No, I think that's an issue.
That's the thing with MK is that like we don't know really what they're doing. It's a difficult one because, like I said, I mean, DC is the map that they're obviously going to play against DC, the maps they're going to play against DC. They'll probably try and get to what seems to be Cobble and most likely Train. DC will most likely give them Cobble
because they want to play it anyway.
Yeah, but they're not going to give them Train. So does it go to Cash and Cobble because DC is pretty potent on those maps?
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. I think the issue here that we have right now amongst a lot of the top teams is that there is some similarity of map pools, and unfortunately, having a similarity of map pool with Energy and Bravado is not good for you.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, DC we've seen try to expand their map pool, especially going to Nuke and things like Inferno. But ideally you want to get BVD and Energy away from their strong maps. Like you're not necessarily going to get to your strong maps, but you want to get something like more middling where you at least have a chance. And right now, just every team seems keen to play Energy and BVD on Cobble. I mean on
On
Cash, which is
cash,
just
yeah.
like
Insanity. Stop doing it.
my my
Please
mind
stop doing
hurts when
it. I mean, you can do it. It means we get to go home earlier, but you know, for your sake, please stop doing it, teams. But
yeah, it's
coming back to MK, I think that they are a team that could possibly end up fourth here just because of the draw that they've gotten. So they've taken some pain, but there's the possibility that they can make it through. But it depends on the result against DC as far as I'm concerned.
yeah. I think the most important one here for me is going to be who did Flipside play in the second week, actually? Sorry, I just wanted to just
Oh,
check that to make sense.
quickly have a look. F3 was Energy.
And this week they played DC. So, I mean, they've only got BBD as well. It's kind of the same. I think that Flipside mixed company game, provided Flipside sorts out their issues, that could actually be the real game to break open the season here. XTC could play as a spoiling game, and then obviously XT is always going to be dangerous. But right now, I think that Flipside mixed company could be the unofficial game of the season, because I think it's the top four that go to the online finals.
Yeah, very
Uh,
much so. So, I mean, let's talk about the fixtures that are coming up. So, tomorrow, Monday, is, well, I'm sure this video will go out tomorrow. So, tonight, then, shall I say, Damage Control versus Mixed Company. That is actually going to be a real cracker, I think. Bravado F3, that should be Bravado's game pretty easily. It's just F3 probably use it more to figure some things out. The Friday game, though, Vexed versus XD, I think could be a really good one. I mean, Vex could get themselves a map there actually if they keep performing as they
yeah,
have. So that's a very dangerous game for XD. XD should not slip on that banana peel, but it actually could be quite interesting. And then the final game for this week, Friday the 9th, is Energy versus XCC. And you got to say Energy so far looked very strong. XCC are a team in the past that have given them a hard time at times. So it could be interesting. I don't know if PND is back yet for that game or not, and I think PND probably could be the guy who means they either have a good showing or it might be a tough night.
yeah. It also is going to depend on whether XTC's done any work on their current issues, because they've done best against Energy when they had that set structured, you know, tactical play, drop the smokes, all the rest, try and funnel Energy to where they want them, and then take the fights that they want. The current XTC that we've seen the last week or two is not really been that kind of team. And Energy, I think, are going to be more than happy to just take fights against XTC and win most of those fights.
Yeah. So, I mean, this has been a little bit of a longer show than we intended, but we have been trying to wrap up some of the previous weeks. So, depending on how we feel, depending on how you guys enjoy this or not, maybe we'll do an episode a week or something like that going forward, where it'll be like 10 minutes. We'll just quickly wrap up what happened that week or whatever. But we had a whole like 4 weeks worth of season now to talk about. So, it took a little bit longer. So, I mean, thanks for joining us, guys. If you want to check out the ESL Africa Championship CSGO action, it's every Monday and every Friday on the ESL CSGO B Twitch channel. It's on the Facebook page of ESL Africa. It's on the ESL Kwese free app, shall I say. And I think if you've got a Kwese decoder, it's also on there, as far as I know. But I don't know anything. I mean, I'm like Jon Snow. I don't know all that much, as it turns out. So definitely check it out every Monday, Friday, starting at around 7-ish for the games. And there's a little bit of pre-analysis. You'll find myself, you'll find Burning Red on there. You'll find Profeci and Phantom also. And then we got some very special guests joining us in the coming weeks as well. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Certainly, I'm interested to see whether teams like DC can keep up the lead, because I think DC and EN, if they manage to draw even against BVD, I think that is going to be a real spicy situation, because then BVD is going to come into a tournament not ranked number one in in the seedings, and might actually end up with a much harder bracket to get through.
Yeah, it really could. That XD game, as you mentioned at the beginning of the video, and we've spoken about it on the broadcast as well. Wow, that could come and bite them in the ass. So I'd say for the sake of excitement, it'd be pretty nice if it did. But if you're a BVD fan, I do apologize. You don't want that to happen. I'm supposed to be neutral, so I'll go with that. I'm neutral. Whatever happens, I'm gonna shout about it on the stream and get real excited. So thanks for joining us, guys. Check out the ESL Africa by Kwese broadcasts, and we'll see you around.